Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. Excuse me. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Neil, Brian's Logic, Arwin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Greetings all.
Hello.
Hey everybody.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, Neil. Hello, everyone.
Sound like a bunch of zombies.
Bunch of soundies.
Zombies.
Oh, sorry, my one-track mind.
It's from the ether. Ether's got us dizzy.
Oh, Neil, come on now.
Right, let's do some housekeeping. Any evidence of the distance
Yes,
to
man.
the
The
sun?
light medium is spinning.
Any evidence of the
Ooh.
distance to the sun?
It's 3 AU away.
No, there
Oh,
is
it's
no
a black-
evidence for the distance to the sun. Because they found out the distance to the sun because through the distance to Venus. And they found out the distance to Venus through the distance to the sun. They knew the distance to Venus to find out the distance to the sun, but they needed to know the distance to the sun to find out the distance to Venus. So, well, anyway, it all started with a radius. That's gone now, so, oh well.
Well, any evidence of the R value, Earth radius, as specifically you need Earth radius to be transposed onto Venus's radius in order to give you the scaling values from Kepler's third law, as Brian's pointing out. So without that assumption of R, you've got nothing to give you the scaling values to give you the distance to the sun. Correct, Brian? Any evidence of R?
Venus is flat.
No.
Unless you want to say Venus.
Gases don't have
No.
an inherent shape.
I'm just going to say something to someone in chat. I wouldn't normally do this. Anthony Riley, Sleeping Warrior, please join the show, as you've been trying to call me all morning about what Veritasium has to say. Just join and tell us. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No. Is there any evidence that Sleeping Warrior's pissed off at all of us for rumpusing him?
Yeah, he is pissed off, and I don't blame him. I heard the show back.
And he got mad as I said something, and he flipped out on me.
I often blame Arwin when it's you, Neil. Just so you know, I'll say, shut up, Arwin, and then
I
see your
know.
mic close, like now.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Go on. Oh, he said thanks for that. I misheard Arwin. I thought he said something else. Okay, let's move on. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without a container?
Absolutely not. You need a container for any type of gas pressure. I would like it demonstrated from any baller. Come and show me gas pressure without a container. That means walk with it in your hand. Well, is there any evidence that you can have temperature without a container? Because how do you have temperature without a container? And you need temperature to, to have a gas pressure gradient, you need temperature. To have pressure, a vacuum, or temperature, you need a container. So a container is needed for all three things.
Okay, I get to play baller
So-
then. Wicked.
What?
Hold on, I get to put the contrary argument to your claim. See how you cope, Brian. So you're saying no container, no temperature. I've got a thermometer in my hand right now, and it's telling me the temperature, exclude the fact that the thermometer itself is a container. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what it reads on the thermometer. It's reading a temperature and I'm outside. There's no container. What are you talking about?
You're within a big container because you couldn't have temperature in the first place. You can't have a temperature, you can't have pressure, and you can't have a vacuum without containing it. You can't have any of those things without containing it. So
Hold on. Almost. Nearly. 99% there, Brian. So, no, I have got gas pressure already. I've got it already. I'm definitely breathing, and my thermometer says I've got temperature. No container required. You're so close.
No, you can't have any of them without container. You have to be within containment, otherwise you wouldn't have them.
Right.
Technically,
let me commend him. Yes, exactly. Where'd you get the gas pressure in the first place, right? So if I'm saying I've got a thermometer and gas pressure, well, where'd you get the existing gas pressure? How have you got that gas pressure to begin with? Right on, Brian. Go on, Owen.
Thank you, Nathan.
Yeah, you can have temperature even in a I'm echoing. But you cannot.
How do you have a vacuum without a container?
Temperature transfer without material to transfer the temperature, right? So there.
You said a vacuum. How do you have a vacuum without a container?
Well, we can only create it. So I'm not talking about the container. I was just being
nitpicky. What do you use to create a vacuum?
You can have temperature without a container. You just can't transfer the temperature.
What temperature can you have without a container?
The heat contained within an object that cannot transfer it because there's no material to transfer it through.
Where does the heat come from?
I don't know.
Hold on. If you're saying the object, well, the object itself is containing the heat. The structure of that solid is containing the heat. So it's still a structure. If you're going to say, well, no, that's because it's solid. Well, okay. Brian's obviously not prefaced enough that he's talking about gas. But your example still holds true with this example. He's still got to have something to contain that heat. In this case, a rock or whatever.
Well, yes, if you're going to say you have to have some kind of container in order to have gas pressure, in order to come to that setup. Yeah, you can't have a setup with a vacuum container if the whole thing it is all in wasn't pressurized in the first place.
But that's Brian's point. So container required, like Brian's trying to get you to say. All he's trying to get you to say is, I'd need a container. That's all he's trying to get you to say.
Right, I wasn't disagreeing with that. It's just that within a vacuous setup, there can still be temperature. It won't be able to transfer itself because it requires material to transfer.
Yeah, that's what he said last time. And then Brian's response was, how'd you have the vacuum? And all he was waiting for you to say was, well, you'd need a container for that too.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was so gratifying for Brian. Thank you, Arwin.
All right. I wasn't being Baldwin or anything. It was just being...
No, I know. I didn't suggest you were. Anyway, anything you want to add, Brian? I'm going to move on with housekeeping questions, if not.
No. Thanks, Nathan.
Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
It always exists in the math.
Do you mean the non-visible visible curve of the Earth or the visible curve of the Earth?
The non-visible visible curve of the Earth only exists in the maths. The visible...
No, it is visible. It just doesn't match the geometry, that's all.
Well, then it's not visible. It's just visible as a marked with an X labelled horizon that doesn't exist in physical reality horizon. So non-physical, non-visible, only in maths horizons aren't really relevant to our world because they don't exist in the world we inhabit.
No, it is visible. It just doesn't really match the geometry.
Where's it visible? In the maths.
No, it's not visible. You can't see through math. That doesn't work.
I can see a marked with an X labelled horizon on a piece of mathematical representation, which is the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve maths. It says horizon, so there it's visible. In reality, however, it isn't.
I'm pretty sure that's a rendering or a drawing, though. That's not actual observation.
Well, they compare it to photos, though, don't they?
I guess they do.
They did.
But yeah, it's a problem when you get through all the details, then it doesn't really match the geometry. That doesn't mean that you can't see it, though. It just doesn't match the geometry, that's all.
Yeah, well, it would need to if they were going to assert that it matches the geometry, which is what they do assert when they compare it to pictures. But then when we point out that it's debunked with the black swan, then suddenly the comparison of physical geometry obscuring your view doesn't match up because we don't have a physical geometric spherical horizon. It's an apparent horizon.
As we're laughed at and told, oh, you guys think you could go stand on it. No, that's you guys think boats are disappearing behind it. So that's you guys. So
Yeah.
keep going. Have fun with that.
And I
Well,
like
we
the-
are.
Hold on, Brian. I like that you picked up on that yesterday, actually, because I hadn't spotted it, Chocolate. But yeah, they suddenly started to try and project their claim that's been debunked onto us now. Oh, well, you say we can go and stand on the horizon. No, you've got a physical horizon that formerly blocked boats and buildings that you now tell us can't be seen and isn't physical. But what I now have the horizon that's been debunked that was physical. No, that's still your horizon. It's still debunked. You're just denying it now as an anti-flat earther.
Well,
Yep.
we are. Sorry, Chocolate. Go on.
No, I was just agreeing. Yeah, that I found that to be quite hilarious as he's laughing and saying, "Oh, you guys think that you could go stand on it? This place that's marked with X." No, that's you guys. Go ahead, bro.
Okay, Brian.
Okay, thanks, Dad. Well, it has become very apparent, and that the pun is intended, that we're not expected to be able to see it, and we shouldn't expect to see it. That's
Well,
what
that's a
we've been
little
told.
weird.
Yeah,
That's what
weird
I've been
because
saying.
When I read the definitions from National Geographic, they say the local horizon, also known as the geometric horizon, is the visible boundary between Earth and sky. They even underlined it themselves.
And then they
Did you
go
think
on.
They underlined that for us or for you guys?
Oh, for us.
That's what I've been
For us.
saying.
For us. They then went on to take flat earthers to the beach and tell them how and where we would see the physical geometric sphere-edge horizon blocking a boat in the distance. They just didn't notice that there was a horizon behind the boat that was being claimed to be blocked by a physical obstruction of Earth curve and its geometry, when the horizon's behind the boat, they say, is being blocked by a clear optical limitation, because it wasn't the horizon blocking it, that was behind the boat.
But
It's just
apparently,
an
National
honest mistake,
Geographic thought
honestly.
that horizon should be physical, right? Because they said, look, it's blocking the stripe on that flag.
That's correct. They took flat earthers down to the beach specifically to tell them where you can see the geometry of Earth curve getting in the way of stuff. What's that, you tell us? Oh, go on, Ryan. 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 Ryan.
Hello.
Second day in a row. Okay.
The
So-
thing
Go
thing
on,
is, they said 2.5 stripes was missing when actually was only like a half of a stripe. Not even that, and you can count that for the waves. Pretty simple.
Yeah, but what they said, regardless of how much they said, was blocked. So 2 stripes are blocked by a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve, that's actually also simultaneously behind the boat. That's what they're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Shh, don't look at the horizon in the back. Shh. Don't pay that.
They
any
could have
mind, guys.
obscured the whole flag. And if there's a horizon still beyond that, then it doesn't mean anything.
Exactly.
Now that's the refracted horizon.
Yeah, you can't have two.
No.
A horizon's a visible location where the land or sea meets the sky. Visible, apparent, appearing, apparent. It's appearing. Yeah. So it's not a second horizon that doesn't appear to be the demarcation between sea and sky or land and sky. That's not a horizon. It's just where they were saying the boat was getting a bit too squashed through an angular limitation because they're close to the deck. It's an effective perspective. But they thought it was the horizon getting in the way, and they took flat earthers to tell them that. Now, meanwhile, anti-flat earthers, non-globers, but anti-flat earthers, say things like, we wouldn't expect to see an Earth curve edge horizon. That's what they tell us. Well, yeah, you do. You take us to the beach with cameras and say, look how much it's blocking the boat, the physical horizon that's Earth curve, and we go, oh, no, there's a horizon behind it. This is obviously a different effect now, isn't it? And then someone like Planner Walk, was it Planner Walk or was it Unorthodox, says, yeah, that's just optics for the exact same effect. So yeah, there's a horizon behind the boat, but the boat's still got a bit missing at the bottom. What's the reason then? It can't be Earth curve, horizon's behind it. Oh, that's optics. Something we completely ignored when we told you that it was Earth curve blocking these stripes on the boat.
When you have a presupposition, a fallacy, that you live on a globe, the math says it's got to be 1.22 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. And when you look at any of these so-called evidences, pictures or video, it's not there. So they got to say it's there, but you can't see it. And now they're hearing their arguments being torn down. And they're saying that we're saying you can stand on it, but it's really they're the ones who have this mathematical equation of 1.22 based on the radius of 3959. So all it does, if you go backwards on it, if the Earth was a sphere, right, with a radius of 3959 p, then every horizon distance measurement must be no more than 1.225 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, q. But guess what? It doesn't match their math, which means we're not on that presupposition or that presupposed globe.
Right on. Any more to add on Earth curve? Or the
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, no, the horizon that you see beyond the geometric horizon is just there because of perspective.
You don't see a horizon beyond a geometric horizon, because that would imply that you do see this second physical limitation, like a hill, blocking things into the distance. That's supposed to be the horizon, and we only have one. So it's not like we've got a second one beyond the one that we don't see, because we don't see it, therefore it's not a horizon, are we?
Just be happy that we gave you perspective, okay?
What's
They
that?
have as many horizons as they do branches of science.
Meanwhile,
That's
we've only got
funny.
one horizon, and the horizon in the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator is physical and geometric. Marked with an X, labelled horizon in their maths. Shout out to Unitox Femu. In my childhood, it was only one horizon. That wasn't anything to do with your upbringing, Unitox Femu, and everything to do with just the reality we observe. We've only got one horizon.
To the response of as many branches of science to the horizon, that explains why they get triggered.
Oh
Any
my
evidence of
God.
axial rotation? Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? Hey, Eli.
Good morning.
Morning.
Axial rotation
no,
of the what?
Not that I'm aware of.
You would need the axis first, right?
You ought to get a radian value. Yeah, you would, Chocolate. That's a bummer if you haven't got an R value.
Antipodal
Yeah,
star
that sucks.
rotation.
The assumption thereof. What about it, Arwin?
That proves the Earth spins,
It proves you've assumed antipodal positioning.
but it still spins, right? And then suddenly at the horizon, the stars that were underneath you before become visible again.
If you assume
And others
antipodal
move
positioning,
underneath you on the
If
other
you-
side.
say it 5 more times through me, I would. Yes, if you assume antipodal positioning, i.e. when you travel south, that would be out towards the direction the compass points, towards the horizon, that when you arrive at that location that you have travelled to, that you have somehow become antipode from where you began. Well, that's an assumption.
Whee!
What's the problem?
That you're supposed to prove it, not just assume that if you travel to the south that suddenly you're hanging off the bottom of a sphere you're trying to prove. Assuming that you're hanging off the bottom of it when you make observations of things that are above you. Well, no, actually, I'm going to assume that they're not above me. When I travel out to the horizon in a southward direction, what was above me in the north is now below me in the south relative to where it was in the north. No, it's still just above your head and you've just moved out southward. There's been no drop. You've not experienced any topographical changes that would indicate an 8 inches per mile squared drop from your location that you started at to imply that you're antipode when you arrive at your location. Nothing along the journey has inferred that or implied that in any way, shape or form. It is merely an assumption.
But most people seem to be okay with it.
Is that a fun assumption though? Like to think that there's an entire existence antipodal to you, the thousands of miles underneath your feet? Does that make sense to people? Because when I describe it like that, people look at me like I'm weird. It's like, no,
I
that's
don't
what
think
you think
most
it
people
is.
have even thought about it that deeply.
I was thinking about that when I was a kid.
Me too.
I don't understand.
Yeah, same
I
here.
never had a problem with it. You just take a balloon, then you imagine that your fingers of both your hands are walking feet, and then you just walk on both sides of the balloon. I don't see the problem here.
Yeah, once you turn the cartoons off, that it becomes a problem because that's not my reality. Cartoons are great, anime is great, but when I step into reality, I need the really is level. People, an entire existence of people, things, water, cities, clouds underneath my feet, thousands of miles underneath my feet is ridiculous.
So, okay, so you have a problem with circumdicular reasoning. I'm very sorry for you. No, I'm
No,
not.
I'm good. Don't be sorry for me.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
What's gravity?
Antipodal standing on the earth.
The
Yeah.
bending of space-time,
The uneven distribution of mass.
causing the bending of space-time.
Right.
Pseudo force space.
So how
But
are
they
they
can't
bending?
explain how the mass distributed unevenly or why it distributed unevenly.
It didn't. It's taking place in a realm that isn't real. Pseudo-Romanian force space.
Agree.
So it doesn't.
So
But
if
even
it
in their
would
paradigm,
be
that
dis-
they can't explain how or
Can I say
why it
something?
distributed unevenly.
Right, that was my question. If it is the distribution of the masses, how are they being distributed then? Towards what? Is there a pattern to this?
Well, yeah.
Is that described?
From the Big Bang, if all the particles were created at the same time and expanded out in all directions, then wouldn't they have spread out evenly, not unevenly?
What's the Big Bang?
A violation
Yeah,
of
I
the
know,
first law of
I know.
thermodynamics.
A violation of a natural law. That
I didn't-
doesn't seem
How do you get
feasible.
how do you get an infinitely dense something to overcome the so-called theory of gravity to expand out? Please explain.
Well, if I may attempt to actually try to find some form of logic or structure within the saying, the uneven distribution of mass, maybe it's not even really a causal link. It's just something they put out there. Like, yeah, how we assume that all the planets form, that it all comes together, that it all spins around one another. That is gravity. It doesn't actually explain how it happens or any kind of physical correlation as to what is manifesting in order for that to happen that way. It's just like, no, that's gravity. It's just the way the masses seem to be distributed out there, causing the universe to form the way it does. That is gravity, and that is all. Is that really what it's saying? I wonder.
Well, here's the they don't think about the inconsistencies in their own logic. Because okay, you got this hot, dense thing expanding out, and it's supposed only way mass can start to clump together if it starts to cool. But the problem they have there, if it starts to cool, then how is it going to reignite to create stars again? Because you have to have gravity reignite the heat to create the stars. So then that's going to push the gas back out again. So there's inconsistencies even within their own rhetoric. You
Yeah,
just stop
but
and
you're
think, well,
already
that's why I said
you're already assuming mechanical logic in this, right? I think that they completely bypassed all mechanical logic, all physics, and just said the way it came together and how we learned it, that is what gravity is, without an actual explanation.
Hey, Adam.
That's what it sounds like.
A scientific, hey Adam, a scientific theory is something that is backed by constants. Okay, so it's backed by science experiments that adhere to scientific method that are repeatable constantly to get the same exact result. The only thing constant about gravity is the term gravity. Everything else continually changes. There is absolutely nothing constant about gravity, and that's why there is no science experiment to back it, and that's why there is no scientific theory of gravity. There is only a colloquial theory of gravity.
Perfect.
Gravity is not a constant.
Perfect. So no scientific evidence of gravity then, in answer to the question, Brian.
No, Nathan, no.
No.
Adam, did you join because you wanted to talk about this particular question, or can I move on?
No, just running late, so I didn't even know what we were chatting on, but no,
Perfect.
no, nothing to that.
Okay, any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Well, the Big Bang Theory might be one, but it's not not testable or anything like
Not a
that.
viable hypothesis.
Or logical.
It's a mathematical abomination. Divide by zero, get everything. It's also
Yeah,
a first law of
yeah.
thermodynamics violation.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got nothing.
And they say, we already talked about this yesterday too, even in the Big Bang Theory, that an infinite cannot exist in reality. So when they say an infinitely dense point, that's a contradiction.
Yeah.
It's not logical. That can't work.
Yeah, it's only happening in maths, though, isn't it? It's happening in the pseudo four-space geometry world realm that we don't inhabit. And in that realm, abstract that it is, you can do anything you like. You can violate the rules of mathematics itself and divide by zero and get absolutely everything, and then go from there. No validity required. Just like Mystic Meg coming up with a theory.
Shout out to Rumpus, who
Yep.
told us all about the 4D world, but never told us how to get there.
We don't inhabit the 4D world. That's not somewhere we inhabit. Time is a concept, not a medium that you can manipulate or inhabit.
There's
Well,
no way time can possibly affect matter. That's just crazy.
Well, and I did have a concession yesterday from a Glober that they're actually will admit now, at least one of them anyway, that space-time is just a model. So when I asked the question about material and immaterial, they had to say immaterial, which means it's a concept. So at least I got a Glober on record saying that space-time is just a concept.
Anti-flat earther.
No, that was a Glober. It was
if you're
not a
having
flat
to-
earth, it was a Glober.
If you're having to correct them
Exactly.
on their own rhetoric, because they're presumably in defiance of their own rhetoric because we've proved it wrong, at that point they're an anti-flat earther. So it's not touting the rhetoric, right? Pseudo four space, it's in the bloody title. So if you're having to make him concede that it's pseudo four space, then you're dealing with an anti-flat earther, not a glober. Same
I thought
goes
that's
with
what an anti-flat earther was.
picture this,
Because
right?
the normies, I like a normal person, I just call them a normie.
No, normie is somebody who doesn't really give it any consideration. They go about their general life, and if you ask them about living on a sphere, they'll have some basic notion of what that means, and they'd be able to roughly parrot off some garbage they heard on the Discovery Channel. That's a normal person. Now, a glober is somebody that comes to say, don't you realise we've measured Earth a sphere? Yeah, you can take a dip angle measurement, or something that's in line with Neil deGrasse Tyson and the High Priesthood of Globe. That's a glober. A glober is someone that toes the line of what the globe rhetoric says. Now, somebody who then comes across us, flat earthers, and realises that we disprove the rhetoric that the priest has them adhere to as a glober, they then brace against it and start arguing against things like their own rhetoric. For example, you and your reference frames have been ruined. Yeah? That's them somebody bracing against the notion that Earth turns beneath things that aren't attached to show Coriolis effect to prove we spin. Someone who tells me as a flat earther that my reference frames are ruined is an anti-flat earther. They're already well into the cognitive dissonance. They're all into the realising how we prove their rhetoric wrong and then coming up with workarounds to overcome arguments that prove globe arguments wrong. Now those people, Craig and Simon Dan and Katz and all those people, they're anti-flat earthers. Craig's even got it in his title, Fight the Flat Earth. He's not here because he's a proponent of globe. He doesn't fight the globe arguments. He fights the anti-flat Earth arguments. He fights the rebuttals that destroy the globe argument. So another example would be Tim Osman. Nobody claims the horizon is Earth curve. End quote. Globers claim the horizon is Earth curve. But anti-flat earthers claim nobody claims the horizon is Earth curve. Do you see the distinction?
Yeah, I get what you mean. I just call them globe tards. That's why I named the song that.
Sure, globe tard, globe head, yeah, they're all kind of similar and they've got no distinction. And I wanted to draw a distinction that I did many years ago when it was just Reg Rhetoric and Sean and various other nobodies. Well, when it was just them, I was like, they are the anti-flat Earth movement. So they're not the guy that I talk about when you look at the guy who's got a bazillion views on YouTube with a picture claimed to be Earthrise, taken from a second law of thermodynamics violation, and he sits there over the top of the picture in high def with a really nice mic and talks about how he feels and how the world is perceived to him because of this Earthrise picture. Now that'll get a bazillion views. Why? Because he's a glober, directly in line with the global rhetoric. He's not there telling his audience how, but when flat earthers say it's a second violation, he's not doing that. He's just towing the line of what globe means to him. That's a glober. Now, if that same guy then came across us and we literally had his video up and we're like, see this video, this guy babbling on about how he feels about space. He's talking about a place that doesn't exist. He's telling the world how his emotions are being governed by Narnia. And he comes along and goes, no, from what I understand, right, you claim we can't have gas pressure without a container. It would fill the vacuum of the sky. But I say the second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply to a heliocentric model. Immediately, that distinguishes him from a glober. Yeah? It makes him an anti-flat earther. He's fighting against the flat earth arguments that destroys rhetoric. And he can't then just toe the line of the rhetoric. He has to come up with excuses. Well, gravity's a force, but I can think of it as a force. Therefore, it's an emergent force that holds gas here, even though it has no effect on entropy. That cluster screw is actually my explanation for why the sky vacuum doesn't violate the second law of thermodynamics. Said no globe believer ever. Globe believer says, yeah, of course space is real. We've got pictures from space. That's as far as a glober takes it. Yeah, NASA. So we occasionally get globers here. We never get anti-flat earthers here. And if we do, all they can do is Discord rumpus and cut off the rebuttals and attempt to censor what we say in rebuttal to glober arguments. So their task, if here, which is rare, is to obfuscate the devastating rebuttal reaching the audience. Because they can't respond to it. They can deliver a cluster screw and nonsense contradictions and cognitive pain and then rumpus us. That's all they can do. That's anti-flat earthers.
I think you're correct, Nathan, because I think a big distinction between the globers and the anti-flat earthers is the anti-flat earthers are people that know deep down that the globe is over. But they hate that we're the ones telling them what's reality. So they don't want us telling them what reality is because their pride is too big. And they don't like us because we're pointing out all the things that they didn't see, that they thought they would have seen themselves as being intelligent and intellectual. And we're pointing out all the silly things. Like when I say silly, it's just because it was so obvious, things like gas pressure without a container. They hate us. Whereas globers don't hate us, they just don't understand us. Whereas anti-flat earthers hate us because they know that what we are, what we represent. What we represent is taking the thing that they believed in and throwing it and flushing it down the toilet because it's rubbish, and giving them the reality that is real. Maybe I didn't explain that as well as I'd like, but I think you get the gist.
They want to be globers. They want to go back to the position that a normie or glober just doesn't have any really consequence of being under the impression that they're on a sphere. It doesn't affect their life in any way. Now, an anti-flat earther is deeply affected by this. Us, I mean. And as a result, as Brian says, they hate us. I don't care. I don't lose any sleep over this. I am now, as a result of being a flat earther, back to the state, that mean level, that a normie is in terms of not really caring. It doesn't affect my day. Knowing that it's flat doesn't really affect me. I don't feel like I've got to fight against NASA. I don't have to fight the NASA Earth. Yeah? But they do. They feel that there's a battle going on, and we've got to stand our ground and take the blows. I don't feel that way. I feel more akin to the normie that just goes, I don't care. The person that, when they come across this subject, asks you this question, all right, what difference does it make? Who cares? How's it going to affect my life? I've still got to go to work. Well, that state of being is a really beautiful way of being, because it means that you're not losing sleep over it. You're not feeling that you've got to start up a YouTube channel to fight this terrible movement that's going to affect your day-to-day life. Well, I feel like that guy. It's like, it doesn't really make much difference to me. I still go out and take my kids out for walks and buy ice cream and enjoy life. And, yeah, it don't really bother me. I've got a show about it because it's interesting. And there's this whole other group of people that it affects really deeply. And I find them fascinating. Now, at the moment, they're being promoted by YouTube. They're really popular. They're hot right now. Anti-Flat Earth's hot. I mean, that won't last forever. And when it's all over and that flash in the pan fades into the non-existence, probably not quite as much as Flat Earthers who are actually undergoing censorship, but when it fades away from the promotion by the algorithm, what are you left with? A load of broken people who are losing sleep because they feel that they're in a battle to convince others of the nature of their world. I'm not in a battle to convince anybody of the nature of their world. I don't care what you think. You want to go away thinking that maths is science? Good for you, complete clown.
They're real frustrated at the thought that other people don't believe the things they believe.
Sounds like thought police, huh?
Yeah. Conspiracy Cat's made it clear. So long as consensus still agrees with me, doesn't matter what you think. Oh, really? Well, I don't think what you think matters at all to me. Only what I think matters to me. So the consensus is irrelevant. I know what the world is. I experience it, and it doesn't cause me to lose any sleep. But you're worried about what everybody else thinks, and you're deeply concerned that they all think the same as you. It's pathetic.
Oh, but how dare you think for yourself and reject consensus of smart people?
You know how robotic that sounds? That's so pathetic. And that's how they all sound. How dare you go against science? One of my best friends told me, why do I have to look into any of this? All the scientists that have done all this work, why would I go against that? And I'm like, holy shit. Why don't you just try to get your man card back? I mean, how did you just completely give up your entire authority of your reality to somebody else and their story?
That's what it is. It's your authority that you're giving up. Now I can make the example more extreme. It's like, why do you eat the grey slop? Well, why do I need to think about what I put into my body and consume food-wise? The health government agency have already worked it out for me, and they pre-delivered the packages to my front door. I don't need to give it any consideration. Why would I give it any thought? The smart people have already worked out my nutritional requirements. I don't need to think about it. Why would I want to think about that?
When you
Here's
put it
another
like
place
that,
to
that's kind of
stand.
scary.
That's what I hear.
Here's another
all the
place to
time.
stand. Sorry, chocolate.
No, you got it.
Decide you don't know the nature of the world. You know, I mean, because let's say you don't know. Somebody asked you if the world is round or flat. You say, I don't know. I have to trust, like where I'm my position. I have to trust what other people tell me what the nature of the world is. When you start getting people convincing you of the nature of the world, what they think the nature of the world is, what do you think's going on there? On either side. What do you call that?
Deceiving.
Projection? Is it projection?
Well, usually people try to convince you of something, believes that's important that you believe the same way they do.
No, that's not true,
Exactly.
Paul. That's not true.
Well, think about it. Well, I mean, that's
essentially,
ultimately
you're
what it is.
right.
Of course he's right. We're social creatures.
Right. And if someone goes outside the norm on either way, no matter what it is, if you don't agree with the consensus or don't agree with the culture, don't agree with the community at large, you're the outsider. And we have to convince you to be like the rest of us.
Oh boy, you're still
That's very
dangling on the
prevalent
fence.
with
I
the
can
climate change people and the extreme activism that some of them justify, because they assume that the people that don't agree with them don't understand or something like that, and that their disagreement is not based on science or information or facts. They assume that it's just a denial of their story.
Yeah, well,
So that justifies them taking disruptive action. You know,
taking responsibility. You've perfectly led me, and I was waiting for someone to lead me into one of the comments that Paula's left. So subscribe today to level up. That's Paula. And from the chat, she says, people give up authority and freedom because they think it means they also give up responsibility. Absolutely spot on, Paula.
Beautifully said.
That's what it sounds like when my friend told me, why do I have to do any work? The work's already been done. It's already been all figured out. Why are you wasting your time doing this? He even told me, why are you making songs about this? Why don't you make songs about like going out and partying and shit? I'm like, there's not a million songs about that type of shit already. Why would I want to make the same crap? Do you not even understand what I'm doing here?
Question, why shouldn't I trust what I'm told?
Yeah.
Well, you can.
Well, my only claim is the Earth is as how we all experience it. I'm not trying to say anything different.
I've got to there's a fine line here, because you can, to answer your question, if you want to trust everybody around you, and that's how you choose to be, more power to you. In other words, there's a fine line between me saying, I personally have chosen to look at other evidence in this regard, and if you're interested, I'll tell you. Now, if you're not interested, I've got a show, so I can talk about it anyway. I'll satisfy that desire regardless. My point is, though, that when you get to the point that you go, no, you must start thinking about the nature of your No, you don't. You've got you or me, I've got no right to do that, to tell anybody that they should think about this. That's a dangerous thing, because earlier I compared me to, after a long journey, the guy that's already... It's inconsequential to me. It doesn't affect my life. I've still got to pay my rent. And if I happen to be standing on a flat earth, that same guy will also say it won't make any difference to me if it was flat. I wouldn't care. In other words, to him, it doesn't factor into his worldview. Therefore, it doesn't matter either way. But he still just sleeps at night the same as I do. And for me to go up to that guy and go, you need to start considering this stuff, and it's definitely going to cause you to lose a bit of sleep, because 50-50 chance you're going to go on the anti-flat earth route from here when you start bracing against gas pressure without a container, or the lack of curve that you can't measure, or anything else that you formerly just thought was someone else's responsibility, therefore you didn't need to concern yourself with it. And I'm telling you, you now, because I say so, are going to concern yourself with it. That's not fair. I haven't got the right to do that, and neither has anybody else. And that is such a fine line between expressing how you have come to this realization and telling someone else that they should too. Because then you're on the path to the control structure that we're fighting against. You're on that first step right there.
That's right.
Well,
right. I never try to tell anybody that they need to start thinking about this stuff. My questioning is when I start getting questioned as to why I'm questioning this stuff, especially when they make it very clear they're very comfortable with this lie or whatever the hell. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, well, why are you so concerned with it?
Yeah, that's projection though. You are basically saying they are interested in why you're interested in it. That's the same thing. That's them opening themselves up to question this stuff. Therefore, you're not forcing it upon them if they're asking you why you're interested in it. That is them being interested in why you're interested in it. Yep. Well, why you're interested in what? The subject. That's what.
Yeah. Especially at work, because they hear me do this every day, and they're like, "What? Like, what do you get out of it? Like, what do you get out of it? Why do you do it? You know?" And I'm just like, "Well, because it interests me. Because I like speaking about the nature of the world that I live in."
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Chocolate. Also, that check, I will get it sorted. There wasn't enough money in the account. It will go through, I promise.
All right, I'm still waiting.
I consider myself a real normie because I just accept that it's a flat, stationary, enclosed self-automated dynamic system. It is what it is. And it's like, okay. And I just carry on with life, kind of like what Nathan is saying. Chocolate, it's just like, all right. Whereas other people just can't accept that. Accepting it for what it is allows you to be the normie that you want to be.
And furthermore, they can't accept that we can't accept it, which causes them to lose sleep. We don't sit in line with consensus where they do, or did, before they came across us and this subject. And they want us to sit in line with consensus. That would make them sleep better, so they think.
But how
Our
could you
consensus is better.
But see, the problem is like, you can't get involved in that because it's all a load of rubbish. So you just have to accept what isn't a load of rubbish, which is the truth. The truth is it's flat, stationary, enclosed, that water made it dynamic. That's that. You know, there's no evidence against that whatsoever. So just that's what it is. Carry
And
on
it's
with your
also
life.
about coming to terms with the things that we'll never know.
Well, how
Yeah,
do you
but
know?
we know that it's enclosed. We know what we're living in.
Yeah, agreed.
It's all it can be.
But once you realise that changes the way you perceive things, but doesn't in any way change anything about what you've looked at for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years of your life before you came to this information. None of that changed. When you woke up, opened your window and looked out at the clouds and the sky, and it fell dark, went black, and stars came out and started to move around. All of that remained the same, regardless of how you were told the expanse beyond what you could experience was. Sky vacuum in this instance. Believing that there's a sky vacuum and opening your window and looking out, and believing that that isn't possible because of a violation of natural law, and opening your window and looking out, really isn't any different, other than how you feel about it. And that's what really all we're dealing with when we deal with anti-flat earthers. It's all emotion, it's all how they feel about it. Because the world hasn't folded up beneath my feet, it hasn't unfolded beneath theirs.
Nathan, it makes me think of that song. It's the end of the world and we know it, and we're just fine. Whatever that. I think I'm about to butcher the lyrics. But
That's why in my song I wrote a line that goes, the only thing that really needs any fixing is your view of the world and the way that you're thinking, right? Because the world's not going to change because now you think it's flat as opposed to you thought it was a ball. It's already that way. All you have to do is change the way you're thinking about it.
And then you can stop thinking about it. That's the cure to the insomnia. once you've gone, okay, so it isn't a sky vacuum, we must be in a contained system. There can't be gas pressure otherwise. Then you go, okay, I open my window and the sky looks the same as it did the day before, though. It doesn't actually change anything about the world that you are experiencing. Now, if you turn on the TV and they say, anybody who's going to say that the sky's not a vacuum is going to be stoned to death. You go, yeah, well, then I'm going to worry about that because then consensus definitely is going to affect my life. But that isn't the case. You know, it doesn't sit in line with the religious worldview, and therefore they don't really want us talking about how their religion isn't correct. Well, they've got control over the systems and structures that we inhabit, haven't they? And we're trying to brace against it. They're not going to like that. They've built them up with their rhetoric. Well, you can understand that, right? Shout out to Unitox Femi, who says, which consensus can show me curvature in nature? They can't. There is no curvature in nature, and consensus won't form one. You can't form a physical reality out of consensus opinion. Thank you for the super chat.
Here you go, Nathan. I like this too. When the Globers or someone say, well, this will not work on a flat Earth. I was like, well, if the Earth is flat, then it would work. So no matter what you do, until you prove that prove the claim, or if you've got worked out the full model, you've got worked out everything that's possible. And when they start saying that, well, I have, I was like, well, no, you haven't. No one can, even in science, they admit they can't account for all the variables. So no matter what argument you make, if the Earth is flat, whatever you're looking at or doing does work on a flat Earth if the Earth is flat.
Yeah, it is working.
But the big part about what they're saying there, Paul, is they're saying that it can only work on a globe. And more than that, they're saying it does work on a globe. What globe? Do you know what I mean? This is the thing. They're pre-assuming a globe before anything happens, and they're deciding this thing can only work on a globe because this is the begging the question fallacy that proved our globe to them, isn't it? Without these two celestial poles and all this rubbish that they go on with, it's like, that can't work on that, let's put a globe. That's why it's a globe. It's like, they are the begging the question fallacy proofs that they were given that it was a globe. And that's what they need to hang on to. It can't work on a flat Earth because it can only work on a globe. It's like, what globe?
Yeah, they've
You
been trained
haven't
to.
proven it.
That's usually my answer. What globe?
Yeah, they've been trained to beg the question, is what you're saying. They can't see beyond that logical fallacy. They start with the presupposition that Earth's a sphere and then start making their examples. And after they've made their example, which fits with their presupposition, they say, well, that can only make my presupposition correct. Which means that when they give examples, they're affirming the consequent formal logical fallacies. If P, my begging the question fallacy that Earth's a sphere, then antipodal star rotation. Antipodal star rotation, Q. Therefore, my begging the question fallacy, P, Earth's a sphere, it matches my model. It's like, yeah, but when you went and took this observation, if you did at all, you assumed that when travelling south, you ended up with the stars that were above your head, both at the beginning and end of the journey, were actually beneath you when you started the journey, and the ones that were above you when you started are now beneath you when you arrived at your location. It's like, that's an assumption that you haven't validated or experienced or can demonstrate in any way, shape or form beyond the automatic assumption that that is what you did to make the observation. So it always starts with the assumption that you're on a sphere, and people don't get that. That's out of necessity is why the Black Swan argument has come to pass. Because they say, we already know we're on a sphere, therefore it's perfectly acceptable to start my example knowing I'm already on a sphere. You go, that's begging the question though. Yeah, I already know I'm on a sphere, so it's okay. Yeah, but that's a fallacy. Yeah, but I already know. So when I go south to the bottom of a sphere, that's how they begin. So, okay, right, okay, well, let's start our debunking of their sphere with the sphere already assumed then. If Earth's a sphere, with a sphere radius as stated, then you've got a limitation to the measurement of a horizon that's claimed to be blocking things. If it's beyond that, you haven't got a horizon that's physically blocking things with the geometry asserted, if Earth's a sphere. So we'll do it too, but then they tell us that they claim Earth's a sphere in that example is a straw man. Again, an anti-flat Earth positioning. The Glober would say Earth's a sphere, radius 3959, and boats get blocked by the horizon derived from that R value, based on a limitation of view, if you measure it at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. That's the standard rhetoric. It's what the Globe calculator says. It's widely published. That's the rhetoric. It's what we used to fight when we fought Globers 3-4 years ago. We fought against them telling us, horizon's a sphere edge, it's blocking this boat. Horizon's a sphere edge, it's blocking this building. Why is the 3 feet missing of this building when Earth's sphere edge horizon blocks it? That's what we used to get asked. Very Globehead. Very Globe believer. Now we get told, nobody claims the horizon is Earth curve. The horizon that we see is a not actual horizon that's been derived from an actual non-visible horizon in maths that we don't see. That's a very anti-flat Earth argument now, isn't it? Not Earth's just a sphere like the National Geographic people say. Look, it's blocking this boat. Glober. No, the refracted horizon is beyond the geometric horizon, and it's refracted with an R value that was derived to give you a donkey dick horizon based on the non-apparent apparent horizon that was used by Albrun to measure it. You're like, that cluster screw is only capable of verbalization by an anti-flat earther. No normie would ever say anything like that. Or Glober.
I remember a couple of years ago, it's about 3 years ago now, on Ranty's channel at the time when it was very new. On a presentation I did, I showed this video. It was a 360-degree view from somewhere in South America, looking up at the sky. And what it was a time lapse of the sky from right at the equator, from a high elevation. And they showed all the stars going east to west above the camera, and they showed all the southern and the northern stars, all moving in a 360-degree motion. And the person, I can't remember who it was, I think it was a lady, stated that the reason that it looked so curved was because of the lens she was using, right? And the fact that the lens was moving, so it made it all look so curved. It's not actually that curved. And she showed it in a different way. On a second page she showed it in a different way, but not time lapse, and there's no curve. They have this pre-assumption of a curved sky. There is no curved sky. Things might move in some kind of a circle or seemingly circular or elliptical or something, but there's no curved sky. The sky there's no one can show you a curved sky. You know what I mean? This is complete and utter nonsense. And you could see everything above the horizon, both on the north sides, both north and south, from the equator. You could see everything. There was no stars. There was a bit of refraction happening at the edges, but there was no stars going down behind anything. And the angle she would have to have been to see this, didn't have to move the camera pointed down the way in any way like you'd have to do on a globe. Like, it wouldn't be possible to see, and this is one of the points I was making, it wouldn't be possible to see these things on a globe with the way she was doing it. It would be impossible, because you probably wouldn't be able to see with the angles. You probably wouldn't be able to see to the point where she's talking about. You would see things going down below a geometric horizon and coming back again. But there was none of that. The only reason it was curved was because of the lens. You know what I mean? And when you look at the sky, do you see a curved sky? Where, like, people are being indoctrinated into thinking there's this curved sky. Where is this curved sky? I see a perspective sky. I don't see any curve. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I've never seen a curved sky either.
Yeah, but when I was looking out at the beach this morning, it seems like it's a circle. Like, is that the way we see?
You want me to put that image up?
Just look.
There you go. Got your image up.
It looked like, looking at the whole thing, it's like, is that the way we see in like a circular type or like oval? Because I know that if I travel to my left, where I'm looking out in the ocean, it's not going to be curving, but it seems like it is.
No, but you do have you've got a 360-degree dome of visibility around you based on the lens of your eye and how you perceive the world around you. If you turn around, you can incorporate that into a full circle.
Yeah, so I was right. That's what I told my wife. That's the way our eyes see.
Yeah.
Yeah, your peripheral will always, if you're looking at it as an horizon, your peripheral will always give you like an arc, but it won't be curving down left and right. It'll just be arcing around.
Right. That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not going down. It's an arc in a circle. And that's all it is. And your peripheral will always show you that, because if you're looking straight ahead and you're seeing this arc to the left and right, if you look to your left or right, then that arc will be where you were seeing straight ahead. That's just the way it is. It's just all right.
And if you think that's curvature you're looking at, finish the curve. Use your mind's eye to finish that curve. See how that works out for you.
Well, they don't. They take it into Muppet vision and show you a side-on view. So if this was to be compared to say, okay, how much is the boat that we can't see just below the clouds, blocked by physical geometric sphere edge horizon, the picture that they'd show you to compare to the maths that they're going to do to compare it to this picture would have Neil's head in the shot and a line drawn across the image from left to right, showing his line of sight to a single point. Not a wide expanse of imagery, not a panorama, but a single point into the distance. In Muppet vision, where you see suddenly Neil's head in this picture, which it isn't, because they remove all aspects of perspective. That's what the globe maths do. Remove perspective and call the diffraction limit and various other optical effects that are easily calculable with the Rayleigh criterion. They call that their base maths of Earth curve. And when it's not comporting with what we actually see, they introduce a 7/6R radius value based terrestrial refraction value to bend the light around sphere-shaped air, atmosphere.
Yeah, it's nonsense.
With that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering Stream, stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, or joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering Stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
over with me. What a lovely day.